I'd like to call our Central School District Board of Directors meeting for the month of March 2021 to order. Welcome, everybody. Why don't we go ahead and rise for the flag salute? Jerry, would you mind leading us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jerry. So as you can see tonight, we are both in person at the Henry Hill School District offices, and also some board members joining us virtually in a hybrid model. We'll probably continue to meet this way for the next several months, but it's good to see everybody. Let me go ahead and read the opening statements here, and then we'll get into the agenda review. So welcome to the Central School District Board meeting. Comments from the community are entertained during the time designated under communications public comments. If you wish to speak to the board, please fill out a comment card and turn it into the board secretary or the board chair at the beginning of the meeting. Let me pause there. I think we're still running a little bit different process. Do we have comments from the public tonight? Okay, and those are submitted in advance. Speaker comments in this forum are limited to 3 minutes, but the board welcomes additional information in writing. Personnel laws prohibit the board from hearing public complaints about an individual in an open meeting. All complaints must go through the board's approved process as outlined in board policy KL. This form may be found on our website or by calling the district office. Typically, a speaker's comment is taken under advisement to allow time for the board to review an issue. However, the board chair or the other board members may ask a speaker for additional information or may convey to the speaker some information that addresses their comment. Please note on the speaker card if you would like to receive follow-up communications, and if so, what avenue is preferred. You can also do that as you wrap up your comments. So thank you for attending our Central School Board monthly meeting. So let me turn it over to the superintendent to review the agenda for tonight's meeting.
We just have one adjustment, and it was accidentally left off by us, but we added in the addition of the equity committee report. So that was an add today. So that's the only change to our agenda.
Super. Okay.
Yep.
So pretty standard agenda with communications, actually an acknowledgement first, then communications from the floor, our standing reports, our consent agenda, and then we do have a couple of business agenda items. Okay, any questions about the agenda? Okay, very good. I'll turn it back over to the superintendent.
So this is a fun time of year for me. So I'm going to start with, before I go into resolution, as we are in classified appreciation week. So before I start, I do want to do some shout outs as we begin. So my first shout out for this evening goes to our food services. Our food services employees have been our frontline workers since really March of last year. They have been on those front lines preparing and serving food to our students and our families for almost a full year. And really have just done a phenomenal job in adjusting and adapting and making sure that our students are fed. And it's just been phenomenal in the work that they have done. The second is to our transportation department. They have been key contributors to the Meals on Wheels since last March. And we're also excited because we have students starting to come back into the buildings that we are going to have all of our transportation staff back on board as we begin to bring students back on sites. Next is I want to give shout out to our custodial staff. And I know many people have not been able to be in our buildings. However, I get to walk them and our buildings are pristine. They are beautiful. In my short time here, again, as hard as this year has been, it has given our custodial staff some time to be able to really put our buildings in pristine shape. They have done deep cleaning. They're preparing our buildings for this return of our students, and they're diligent even with our small groups of students that have been on site the last couple of weeks. of sanitizing, disinfecting throughout the day as they bring back students and have students on site, as well as our staff. So just very appreciative to our custodial staff. Next is our front office administrative assistants. They continue to support families in answering our questions and are truly the voices of the school sites as we've maneuvered through this past year. They are some of our essential staff that have helped us communicate out to our families each and every day. And finally, our instructional support staff who continue to support students in the virtual world and have also been instrumental in helping students stay connected virtually. So just for myself, thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of your services to our students, each other, and our great community. And with that, because we are in Classified Employee Appreciation Week, I'm going to read a resolution that we do every year. Whereas the education of youth is essential to the future of our community, state, country, and world. And whereas classified employees are the backbone of our public education system. And whereas classified employees work directly with students, educators, parents, volunteers, business partners, and community members. And whereas classified employees support the smooth operation of offices, the safety and maintenance of buildings and property, and the safe transportation, healthy nutrition, and direct instruction of students. And whereas our community depends upon and trusts the classified employees to serve students. Whereas classified employees with their diverse talents and true dedication nurture students throughout their school years. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Central School Board 13J Board of Directors proclaims March 1st through the 5th, 2021 to be Classified Employee Appreciation Week. And be it further resolved that the Central School District 13J Board of Directors strongly encourages all members of our community to join in this observance, recognizing the dedication and hard work of these individuals, adopted this first day of March 2021. So we are excited to celebrate them throughout the week. Yes. Or as we do in virtual world.
Celebrate them. We used to do breakfasts and stuff like that, but I obviously can't do that.
We've got a couple of things up our sleeve that are a little bit different, so we're going to be working through that this week.
Yeah, much appreciated. As you were reading through those different teams, it's amazing what all they've been able to do, and they are the lifeblood of the organization of the district. So very, very much appreciated. Okay, so that does bring us to our communications from the floor. I think we'll be doing this similar to how we've done it the last couple of months. We'll turn it over to Emily Menstner, who's in the room here with us. She's our communications manager, and she will be introducing our guest speakers. John, are you there?
Yep, sure am. Thank you. Looks like I just got moved up here.
Excellent.
All right. Thank you. My name is John Boren. I have a parent of a child of a second grader at MES. And to start off with, I just want to big shout out to her teacher, Mrs. Kirkman, for exhibiting saintly patience and being positive, even as she deals with the challenges of students who are having a hard time focusing. I also want to give shout outs to the music and PE teachers at MES for putting in a lot of energy and spirit into their classes that, I'll be honest, I didn't think would translate very well. And I think have actually turned out to be really nice parts of the day for her. With that being said, I still think that it is very important, and I strongly look forward to resuming in-person instruction. So just a few quick comments about the last board meeting. It was really great to hear the collaborative spirit and engagement between the board members, superintendent, teachers union, everybody involved. Just a few comments I wanted to touch on that I had some concerns or thoughts about. There was a discussion about teachers being comfortable going back and willingness and such. And I guess it's just a reminder that nobody is in a terribly comfortable position all around, whether it's safety or in the case of us trying to do the tutoring teaching job that many of us realized that we were not cut out to do. And so I guess I would take a step back and look at it from a student-centered point of view of, yes, we'd like everyone involved to be comfortable, but let's do what's best for them first and then accommodate parents, administration, teachers, etc. There's also a discussion about surveys, and certainly in a dynamic environment, I totally understand the importance of surveys and really understanding where parents are coming from. But they're just a snapshot in time. Things can change. And ultimately, it is up to the board superintendent to make decisions. And in the case of where decisions either are or are not aligning with those survey responses to help explain them, I took a look at other schools that had opened for in-person learning or at the beginning of the year out of state. And it looks like it was a 50-50 split. But as success built, people saw that it looked like a safe way to go. More parents were comfortable. So at least in one instance in Florida, went from like 50% to 80% in Duval County. So the last item I want sort of to encourage the board to be bold. It's awesome that we're doing some Libby, my students starting next week. But are we being bold enough? Are we truly doing our best? CNEM Christian has been full-time the whole year. We have friends at Lucky Mute Valley Charter that just moved to full-time now. So I definitely understand being cautious, but also let's do what we can to get back to a full-time in-school learning as soon as we can. Thank you. That concludes my remarks. Any questions for me? I say I ran out of my 3 minutes.
Oh, John, I think that was great.
Thank
Okay,
you.
we'll let you go and move on to the next. That's it? Okay. All right. Very good.
I'm sorry.
Do we get to hear from them tonight?
That is, I believe, if she is on the link.
Yeah, so we're moving into our standing reports now, and first up is the Central High School ASBEC representative. Do we have Jill Macbeth on the Zoom meeting?
All right. I know everybody has been waiting for this. This is exciting to get them back into.
A very teeny tiny step back to something.
It is, I agree. We're excited to have her. Welcome, Jill.
Hi, can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah.
I was trying to figure this out. I've never been on one of these webinars, so I had to text my teacher and say, "Hey, how do I do this? Why is my camera not turning on?" So thank you guys for your patience and your grace. I really appreciate it. If you guys don't know me, my name's Jill Macbeth, and I am the ASB Vice President this year. I want to thank you for having me here on the call today. I haven't been on here before, and we're already halfway through the year, so it's good to see all your faces and interact with the board a little bit. So the first thing that I have on my notes is right now we are currently involved in a campaign at Central to encourage students to turn on their cameras in the classroom. That's something that wasn't really pushed at the first semester. Nobody's forced to turn on their cameras, but one thing that we're doing in ASBEC is all of us as a class has decided, since we're all in all these different classes and we're so diverse, every one of us is turning on our cameras in class, and that goes, I think, towards our participation in class and our grade for ASBEC. So we're we turn on our cameras, and we hope that that's going to encourage other students to turn on their cameras, because we love our teachers and we want them to have that interaction with students other than just talking to a box. So yeah, there's that part. And we're also working on trying to build school spirit while not being able to attend those sporting events. So we've talked about live streams and things like that, that we will, I'm not very tech savvy, but I know we have a bunch of other kids who are really good with live streams, and we can figure something out once we start sports. So that's going to be exciting. One thing that we're also doing is we're getting ready for class meetings coming up on March 12th, and we'll focus on inspirational messages and staying caught up this semester, because some of us were behind. I know a lot of other students, procrastinated just because it's online and due dates are not as strict as they were when we were in person school. So we have that meeting on March 12th, and it's just going to be our class meeting that we're having. We're also gearing up for class council elections. That's coming up within the next month. I'm not exactly sure on how voting is going to go yet. We haven't talked about that much just because it is next month. We're also having our Mr. and Mrs. Central pageant that is going to be soon, and we're looking at dates to be able to film it and send it out. I think it's going to be the same thing. What we had last year was a Facebook event, or even include a Facebook event or even a live stream. So yeah. And we're also trying to find a successful homecoming week that we play Dallas on April 9th, and we can't be there. So we're going to do a homecoming part 2 pretty much. So yeah, that's all I have to say for ASBEC. I just want to say thank you so much for having me here again. I really appreciate it, and I hope I get to come next month. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Jill. Any questions for Jill before we let her go?
Thank you.
I just wanted to comment on how great it is to see her enthusiasm and getting the activities going again. I know that the theater programs got their filming their programs. Football's back in action. I don't know if our track and field is now. Are they getting close?
Season 2, so you got
Yeah, so they're getting there.
volleyball, we'll get there.
But to see the actual student body as what you're helping them, from simple things as turning on a camera while you're on your Chromebooks or computers or whatever during class, to trying to normalize a time that's not normal. So props to you for being so excited about that and bringing that enthusiasm into the room for that.
Thanks at all. All right. Thanks, Jill. Let's see, next up is our association reports. So we have a report tonight from Independence Elementary School. Lori, are you with us?
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Sure can.
Hi, Lori.
Right. Well, first of all, hello. Thank you so much for letting me join. And I don't know if Emily has the presentation or if I can share my screen. I have a presentation. Nope, it's disabled. Emily, do you happen to have, is she there? Does she happen to have the
Just working on it.
presentation?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right, I got lots of responses back. I sent this out as a Google form asking staff members if they wanted to contribute something to report to the board. And I got lots of responses. So if it's running too long, please let me know and I will cut it shorter. So, all right, go ahead. We'll go to the. So I went through each grade level team, just asking them for some highlights of things going on. Our kindergarten team wanted to let you know that virtual conferences were very successful this year. They mentioned that they were easier to schedule, especially when we had multiple siblings and we had more attendance. Many classes had 100% attendance or very close to being able to connect with families. Also, the kindergarten team really likes the family projects that they've been doing. So for instance, they had in their literature unit, they had their students build a castle from home. And these are pictures that I had just kind of stolen off the web. I didn't have pictures from the actual teachers at the time, just so you know. But they had students build a castle for their literature report. They built a ramp for science. And then for Valentine's Day, they had students draw pictures about kindness and friendship. And then parents take a picture of these different projects and the teachers put them into slideshows. And the kids really enjoy getting to present when their slide comes up. Their Valentine books will be, their Valentine pictures will be put into books that are going to be printed and distributed to students. The kindergarten teachers mentioned this is something they might continue on as we go back in person for future years. So our first grade team wanted to mention that they just finished a science unit on the characteristics of different animal groups. They just last month had a focus on Black History Month. They have been working on their character trait, kindness, through discussion, reading, writing, read alouds, and videos. So that came from the Purposeful People curriculum that we have for our SEL. They have been focusing heavily on phonics, and they're currently working on consonant blends right now. And they're working on subtraction and math and working through gold cards in addition. I'm going to talk a little bit about that when we get to our guiding coalition. As we shift to in-person instruction, they're going to really be narrowing that focus to reading, writing, math, and social emotional learning. So, second grade team, they let me know that they just finished a unit about quilts and their use in the Underground Railroad. So if you have a second grader, you want to ask your students about that. Our third grade team, they have really been loving their science units that they've been teaching. They worked on learning about the bones in the human skeleton. They've been studying animals and classifying them into vertebrates and invertebrates. And they currently are working on different biomes and which animals live in which ecosystem. They have been talking about how animals survive in their particular ecosystem and how communities of animals and plants interact to keep the biomes healthy. They just finished their unit on tundra and they're starting the rainforest right now. And as they finish rainforest, each student will be making a diorama of a rainforest that they're going to be sharing in class. In math, they've been working on multiplication skills through repeated addition and arrays. Our fourth grade team, we've been, oh, sorry, I didn't even introduce myself. I teach fourth grade, by the way, at IES. But our fourth grade team, we've been working on a partnership with Western, and we've been doing math buddies where students are being asked to solve different math problems, and then they are submitting their work through Google Slides and letters to a student over in the education program at WU. And we are actually just finishing up our math buddy program and preparing to do a virtual meet with everybody together where we can meet each other and get to meet our pen pals and those who have been helping us through the math problems. Students have really been showing perseverance by working through their gold cards, which again, I'll talk about in a minute. And it was really fun because we just finished a unit on Pioneers of Flight, talking about clear back, you know, from the Wright brothers and through all throughout history. And it was really fun because as we were finishing this unit, it happened to be when we had the Mars landing happening, and they released the Ingenuity video that was live. And we had our first controlled flight on another planet. I know I had one student in my class that was so excited when I mentioned, this is history in the making. It's the first controlled flight on another planet. She says, oh my goodness, I'm so excited. I'm going to start crying. And she wanted to go tell her parents right away. And so it was really exciting seeing the enthusiasm. For fifth grade, they had lots to say. They wanted to let you know they start each morning with their social emotional learning. And so they spend about 10 to 15 minutes working on a lesson for the character trait for the month. They discuss the definition of this trait, what it looks like, what it feels like. They just finished kindness last month, and this month they're working on empathy. They have been working their way through the ELA, for ELA, the K-12 curriculum, and they take that information, they're breaking out the key elements of the lesson and creating slide decks to make it more comprehensive to students. They have been focusing on letter writing, and right now they're just now diving into informative writing. With math, they've been working on division and multiplication strategies for whole numbers, as well as adding and subtracting fractions. They're currently working on multiplication and division of fractions and mixed numbers. In health, they began with the digestive system and which parts of the body aid in that process. And they thought it was really fun because they traveled through the system with videos and a scientist who actually swallowed a pill-sized camera so they could get an inside look of that digestive system. They have moved into the cardiovascular and circular systems right now. And in science, they've been studying matter and energy and organisms and ecosystems. All right, around our school PE, lessons are focused on getting students up, moving, and dancing. Ms. Greiner has been teaching about how to take care of your heart, your body, and your brain. And she says students are learning about health-related physical fitness concepts like cardiovascular endurance, muscular strength, endurance, and flexibility. She uses Tabata type workouts, and they've been doing scarf juggling. And she has kind of a head-to-head challenge that she does with students where they can try to beat the teacher. And so students are challenged to do more of whatever activity it is they're choosing than the teacher, so they can choose to challenge the teacher. She also has been having dance party balance challenges, and she has started some afternoon clubs with wellness warriors for the K-12 students, fitness fanatics for the 3-5 students. And on Fridays, we have a Feel Fine Friday dance party. This is a school-wide dance party, and she's loving, she mentions that whole families will join in. She'll get younger siblings that are not quite school age yet, or parents that are joining in. It's so fun to see the involvement going on there. With music, Mr. Roberts has been working a lot on building relationships through Pear Deck. And so he'll play different four-corner getting to know you activities where the students are choosing which corner based on certain questions. So he might ask, you like mint chocolate chip ice cream or Rocky Road, or, different things, and the students choose which corner, and they get to see how they're alike and different. Students have been working on a recorder unit for grades 3 through 5. They've been doing recorder karate, where they can earn different belts as they pass different levels. He also has been holding recorder clubs after school. One of those is called Bag, and that's where they're focusing on songs with the musical notes B, A, and G. And then there's another one that he does on the other days of the week that are Bag and Beyond, where they're focusing on more advanced musical notes past B, A, and G. So you can choose which one you want to join, or he has some students that choose both. And they're playing popular songs, folk songs, and games through recorders. For the K-2 students, they've been exploring sounds using their own voices can make, learning new songs, moving with scarves, creating new patterns with body percussion, and playing lots of games. Our PBIS team has been working hard. We do bi-weekly golden ticket drawings. So this is an example of a golden ticket that students can earn if they're showing that they're being safe, respectful, or responsible, and how they were able to model that character trait. These go into a big drawing drum at the school where we have live drawings that are, they're live drawings that are recorded, and we play them for the students, and then their prizes are hand delivered to the students if they win. We also have PBIS videos that are covering, we've been working really hard on covering the expectations that we're going to have as we transition into limited in-person instruction. Our guiding coalition, this is where you've been hearing about those different steps. So based off of the work of John Hattie and visible learning feedback, where students can see where they are on a continuum. So instead of just doing a quiz and, hey, I got 80% or I got a different percentage, what happens here is we've started at kindergarten and mapped all the way through 5th grade. We started with addition, and this is a continuum where students can find where they are on that continuum and be able to see as they're progressing through the different steps of mastering addition. We're going to be working on subtraction, multiplication, division, and also moving into reading skills and really pulling out those core standards. But it gives students a very visual learning of where they fall on this continuum and where they're going and where they've come from. So it's very exciting. Our ELD group, Ms. Stoltz has been working at co-planning and co-teaching with each grade level. We're continuing to collectively work together to incorporate oral language strategies to increase academic language in classrooms. And she's been working on some great professional developments from Ms. Stoltz, RELD TOSA, on virtual engagement strategies for our early bilingual learners. So, and those are focusing on explicit vocabulary instruction and peer-to-peer interactions. Our special education groups, students are attending their virtual groups and making huge growth. They wanted to give a shout out to our SPED assistants who have been very flexible and accommodating with many changes in scheduling, which is very fitting with our oh my goodness, my mind went blank, but with our Classified Appreciation Week, I'm sorry. Our Equity Committee, we are actually starting our Equity Committee over at Independence Elementary School. So tomorrow we have our initial conversation on inviting and encouraging staff to join the Building Equity Committee, advocating for equitable practices amongst staff, students, and families. We currently have 2 staff members that are on the district equity team. That's Mr. Roberts and Tony Castle. Our SEL, we've been integrating purposeful people curriculum into everyday instruction in our classrooms. We also have monthly trait awards that go along with with our SEL curriculum. So we'll find a student that has been showing empathy, for instance, and choose a student that is awarded that character trait. We have a video where they're presented with their certificate, and then prizes are brought to home or sent to their houses. We also have monthly videos that go out explaining the character trait each month. And then Ms. Weeks has been carrying on a lunch bunch with students Tuesday through Fridays. Ms. Weeks is our school-based mental health associate, and she hosts these lunches, and students get to join for peer connection, to improve social skills. They play games, they check in with a variety of different age groups and students from different classrooms. So it's also a chance for students to interact with others who aren't in their classroom. Mental health support, our school-based mental health associate, again, Ms. Weeks, meets one-on-one with students who are in need of extra support. So parents can refer students or teachers, or students might ask for support, and they can sign up for that. We also have our resource connection, and this is where we are delivering food boxes deliveries to families that are in need. We distribute extra school supplies for families that may be in need. We connect families with resources in order to obtain housing or pay bills that they may not have the funds for, and basically supporting families to make sure that basic needs are being met and that their homes are comfortable. For instance, helping get furniture or blankets if families might need that. So our last slide right here, I know I've been talking a lot. Our attendance committee has been working really hard on recognizing students monthly through a Star Wars themed grade level videos. And so students get to see their name scroll across the screen, and they're broken into subdivisions. We have our super attenders that show up for all core instruction 100% of the time. We have our pioneer attenders that show up 95% of the time. And then just this last month, we added our super attenders. And that includes the students who have not only 100% attendance for their core curriculum classes, but they're also showing up in those afternoons for their PE and music class. So they're there consistently all the time. So, and that's what I have to share with you of some of the happenings. I also wanted to add in there, I don't have a slide for it, but we have been running our targeted limited in-person instruction at the school. That has been going great. Students are excited to be back. They're following the safety protocols. Really have made, I mean, it's great seeing these students. These were some of our students that we were having a harder time connecting with for various reasons, and they're coming into the building and have been now for a little while. And so we're able to connect with more students. So we're super excited. Starting tomorrow, also, our K1 students come back for limited in-person instruction. And then the following week, we'll be bringing back our 2nd and 3rd grade. And then that 3rd week, our 4th and 5th grade students will be back. So we're pretty excited to get to see faces again and get to interact with the students.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Any
Yeah,
questions?
great update, Lori. Really
Yes.
appreciate that.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thank
That was
you.
really good, really good.
Very informative.
All right.
Great slides too.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, let's move on to our, do we have an OSEA report tonight? Hi, Cindy.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
We sure can.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be back again, and we're ready to start a new month. And we've got a lot of many employees back to work, and so I'm so glad to have transportation back. It's just good to see more and more people in all the IAs. And that's about the extent of who I get to see back because I'm in my own little realm down there in food service. I just want to give a shout out to Jennifer. Thank you so much for doing the question and answers last Monday. It was over 2 hours. This lady answered questions for us. And so thank you for all the time that you spent on that and the people that you had on your panel to answer questions. Thank you so much. I do appreciate that. I also wanted to let you know that we're going to be having nomination of union officers in the month of March, and those nominations go out until March the 15th. And our next union meeting is going to be March the 18th at 6:30. And so we'll have more reminders coming out and an invite to the union meeting, of course. And I just want to give a shout out again to all the classified employees. You are an important part of this team that we have right here at Central School District 13J. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thanks, Cindy.
Okay, that brings us to our financial and program report section. I think first up is Cease with our finance report.
Evening, everybody. In your packet was the report which compares our appropriations basically by program. It's sort of the big lumps of how we track our funds and compared the year to date through January 31st. As noted, we are well within our appropriations, right? If it gets to be that we are closing in on spending, if there have been some unanticipated expenditures, we would have to come to you for budget adjustments or budget transfers. And none of our funds are in that position at this time. Also noted that, you know, it looks like we are really underspent or under-encumbered. And again, that is not surprising considering many of our usual expenses that would have been going through the year to this point were not incurred. However, as I just approved, for example, $110,000 worth of new internet routing equipment and access points to make sure that our school buildings are ready for the increased internet load that will happen as we have hybrid, virtual, limited in person, and somewhat hybrid or kind of co-virtual learning going on. So we have plenty of things coming up that we will be spending on, but at this point, nothing of concern to bring to your attention regarding our expenditures.
This is Don. Just a quick curiosity question. It looks like that's true for everybody except food service, who looks like they've pretty much spent all of their money. Is that normal for, I mean, obviously they contract out for food and stuff like that, so I wouldn't, it's not scary, but $58,000 isn't much.
Yeah, it's funny. Thank you, Don, for that, because each year they get pretty close. And that is because they are actually super good at encumbering. They do, you know, at the beginning of the year, they'll say, well, here's a purchase order for $100,000 to one of our food vendors. And they they're so near right on. And even this year, with all the unanticipated circumstances, they're doing okay. So we, about this time of year, with only really 4 or 5 months left in the fiscal year, they usually are down to about 20,000, but a lot of it's in that encumbrance column, ready to be spent. So thank you for asking.
Thanks.
Cece, were you going to touch on the maintenance and capital projects or save that for another meeting?
Yeah, we don't really have anything on that. We thought we might have some information for you about the facilities study that has been undergoing, but we did not get a final draft report in time. I think Dr. Kabista let you know that we actually will be sharing the indoor air quality findings portion of that, which is a tiny portion of that, sooner, because that is an area of concern for return to school. But hopefully next month or at a PLC, we'll have a much longer section on the agenda to go through that extensive facilities report that we did. So nothing tonight.
Okay, thank you, Cece. That moves us to our Equity Committee report. Do we have Ben on
I
the
believe
call?
we have Ben joining us tonight.
Hello there, everyone. I'm not sure if you can see and hear me yet.
Hi,
Okay,
Ben.
good.
Yep.
Hi there. So I'm reporting from the District Equity Committee. We also have building equity committees, so these are layered. But we recently had our District Equity Committee meeting. We just wanted to share a few things about the work that's going on there. This group is really dynamic and is going in a lot of different directions at once, and so that's been exciting to see. We have been looking into some different kinds of funding for professional development opportunities, because we know we have a lot to learn. And that's been one of our big focuses. And one of the ways we're doing that is a potential partnership with WU. They have access to some grant funding and want to partner with us. And so they've reached out, and we've been able to meet with Mark Gerard from Western Oregon and plan what that might look like. And so that was a really great discussion, and they've got a lot of flexibility with that grant money. And so we were able to provide some good ideas about how that might best serve our staff. We also might be able to access some funds via something called the REN. What is the REN? The Regional Education Network. And these are state funds that have been allocated so that educators can identify what their own PD needs are. And the funds then go out to the ESDs or to regions. And they've reached out to us and said, hey, this might be a way that we could do some exciting work, especially for your educators of color. And so we've then discussed that within our equity group. How might we best use some funds from the RENs? We might be looking into that. Within our district, we're also looking at audit tools. And so these would be mechanisms by which the District Equity Committee, the Building Equity Committees, and then the staff as a whole could go through and evaluate how are we doing in a variety of ways in our district, and collect that data to be able to say, these are some areas where we really could see some growth, and these are some areas where we already have some strengths. So we're looking at some models from different school districts and seeing what would be the best tools for us to use. And then as Lori Frost already shared, they are starting the Equity Committee at IES. And so we had some talk about that work that's been going on there. Sterling Roberts from IES also shared a really cool resource for specifically around, it was Black teachers, exclusively Black music teachers, talking about bringing Black music into the classroom from a perspective of authenticity. And so it was a really cool resource, and I can share that with all of you as well. We are going to be working on preparing a monthly newsletter from the Equity Committee so that there will be some documentation of what we've been working on that we could share with all of you and that can go out to staff so that they're aware of the work that's being done. Then we shared out from the subcommittees. We are working on getting ready for the changes of the ethnic studies curriculum. This was a legislative change that is mandated by 2026, but we don't want to wait until 2026. So we're working on how can we get ahead on studying those new standards and figuring out how they interface with our curriculum. I'm not sure if you can hear, that's my dog snoring. That's not a weird noise I am making. So I don't know if my mic's picking that up, but that's not me. We're looking at recruiting strategies to diversify our staff and to recruit people to the building level teams. And so what are the things that have already been working to develop those building level teams? And then what are some changes we might need to make in our own hiring practices to diversify our staff as well? And one of the things that we learned in that, and this you'll appreciate, is you have a lot more luck recruiting people to a building level equity team if you don't start by announcing that it will be a book study. So one of the things they have done well, or that they've had more success with is sharing out at staff meetings about that work that's being done in those building level teams. And then staff members get excited because they see that these groups are making progress, they're doing good things, and then choose to join the groups and then realize, oh, I have gaps in my knowledge. I would like to participate in a book study. So the book study comes afterwards. But if you just say to people in the middle of COVID world, would you like more homework? Apparently that's not a successful strategy. So we're working on that. One thing we wanted to have on the board's radar is that we are finding that we need resources for things like books for these building equity committees, and also pay for committee work when it's off the clock, making sure we've got the resources for that. And then one of the things we heard loud and clear was new text for classroom libraries, especially at the elementary level. Often the classroom libraries that teachers create are created over many, many, many years. And when new teachers start, they scrounge in garage sales, and they get the dregs of the other teachers' libraries, and they're slowly building up their classroom library. And what ends up happening as a consequence is that the protagonists of those children's books tend to be exclusively white, able-bodied children. And so if we want our kids to be seeing, protagonists in the literature who look like them, who represent them, then we are going to need to be purchasing more books rather than scrounging. So that's going to be something you're going to be hearing more about, is the need for some more resources. And again, we've been looking into some grant funding. I know that some of our schools did get some grant funding. So that's something that we'll continue to work on. And lastly, we shared out about an opportunity that's going to be coming out through the Monmouth City Council. They're going to be hosting a 4-part monthly program, Conversations on Race. And the first one is March 20th. And so that's from 10 to 11:30 on March 20th. And so that's an exciting opportunity. And they're going to be bringing in some speakers, but they're going to start with Carol McKeel from Oregon State. So highly recommend, and we're going to be taking advantage of all the free opportunities we can. Does anybody have any questions?
I have them. Can you hear me, Ben?
Yeah.
About the books that you're proposing that we need to go and get, you have a proposed budget at all, or an idea of where we can get those? You said.
So we'll start to work through that list. I think that's
Okay.
part of the work that we're going to do with the equity committee. We do have book lists, or there are really ODEs. Oregon Department of Education is doing a really good job of getting age appropriate and from a culturally responsive list of books, all grade levels, for us to be able to build from there. So again, I think there's a combination of both what we know, and again,
Sure.
I say teachers, right? Your teachers are a great resource of one of those for those books, but then also what other might be out there with the Oregon Department of Ed. And I'll be very honest, they have done an extremely good job of starting to again, that's one of their goals within the State Department, is that we are being equitable for all of our students. And so they've really made, as Ben said, specifically with the ethnic studies, they've done an extremely good job in the last probably year and a half of really shifting and getting resources. One of the conversations we have as a staff and when we talk about curriculum is there's growth in curriculum to really diversify our curriculum, and the state has taken some really good steps in that direction. So we're excited to not only with what we have, what teachers have, but within our state and across really trying to reach as many different people and get as many different books that we can get for students where they can see themselves in those books. So that will be part of our process.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Thanks,
fun.
Ben.
It's gonna be fun.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Ben.
Sure. Well, and that ethnic studies curriculum, one of the great things about it is not a curricular change in terms of there's now one ethnic studies class. There's a real recognition on the state level that this is about, providing us with standards to encourage us to embed ethnic studies throughout the curriculum, so that we're not saying, oh, we study Black history exclusively during the shortest month of the year, but we recognize that Black history is American history, Latinx history is American history. This is throughout all grade levels. This is throughout all of our content courses. Great mathematicians and great scientists, people of color, and so this needs to be throughout our curriculum. So I'm excited about the work that'll come in that area.
The other thing that I would just add to that is, and I know I shared it, I think it was 2 Fridays ago, demographically, we are now a school district where a majority of our students are of color. And again, I knew that shift was going to happen sooner probably than later, and this year it did. So again, it's again that continued step as we move forward in supporting all of our students across our district. So we're pretty excited about the work. I get excited about the work every time I get to be a part of these meetings. So just thankful for the district equity team.
Yeah, making great progress. It's nice to see the updates and just keep the momentum up and send our appreciation on to your fellow committee members.
Will do, absolutely. Thank
All
you
right.
all.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Ben.
All right, that brings us to our superintendent's report.
For just a second, we're gonna give you some updated information for later in the meeting that was not connected in the, and we will get that updated. There is a broken link in the board agenda. So I believe Peggy and Darcy, you may have it emailed to you when we get to the consent agenda. For whatever reason, our annual renew, non-renew link was broken. So you in your email do have that for when we get to the consent agenda. We just wanted to make sure everybody had a copy of that. So, and then Emily is going to just start and share a quick presentation that I have, and I'm actually really excited to share tonight because of some of the great things that really since the last time we have met, our metrics have gone down and we've been able to take some steps forward. So I'm excited to not that I'm not excited to share every time at a board meeting, but again, we've taken some, when metrics start to go in the different direction, it makes the conversation and the ability for us to be able to implement and move in a positive direction for students. I want to say, as John said, student-centered and moving in that direction. So let me begin with on February 10th, the governor announced, Governor Brown opened the doors for outdoor contact sports. So we had high school sports begin practice on Monday, February 22nd for our season 2 sports. This includes cross country, football, soccer, and volleyball. And actually competitions begin this week. We have a soccer game tomorrow. I think one of the things I'm just going to remind everybody in the community is we are not allowed to have spectators. And I know that's going to be very difficult to stay away. And I know the high school, we've been working on some streaming things to try and make that happen. But I'm just going to reiterate that again, I say that because the officials have guidance that they are going to follow if there are spectators. So we are excited too, but know that we're asking everybody to please allow our students to have this opportunity. And I don't ever say stay away from events, but I'm asking our community to just stay away and let our kids really get that opportunity to have these activities that, again, we start tomorrow night with one of our soccer programs and then have events throughout this week. Next slide for me. this past Friday on the 26th, we actually, as a county, moved from the extreme to high level, allowing the high school to open up indoor activities. So this is a picture of really taken last Friday of finally our fall theater production being able to start to record. So this is not only allowing our theater or our performing arts to go inside, but our indoor athletics. Normally they had to have small cohorts of 9. Now they're able to resume with up to 50 people at a time. So again, that's why we can move into some of these athletic events. We're very excited about moving forward with this. Next is, as we've shared, tomorrow we begin the expansion of our phase 2. We bring in our K1 students and we begin to transition them back into the classroom. Again, these transitions will be small groups of students, really under 20 students. I don't think really a cohort is bigger than 13. Across all of our grade levels. Our principals have done a really good job. And again, they're going to be in 2 hours every day. There are 2 cohort waves each day. So there are students that are in an AM wave, and then we clean, and then they'll come in for a PM wave. And this allows for students to be in the building every day, Thursday through Friday. That was a really important piece of getting kids back into that consistency. So, we've had a lot of options of, we can go full days, but if we go full days, they only go 2 days a week. So again, it's making some of those decisions. And so students will be in every day, Tuesday through Friday, starting with our K1 and then rolling in to our next week will be 2-3, and then the following week would be 4-5. Also with that, last week we had some, after the ice storm, when we were going to start at the secondary level with our limited in person last week, both Talmadge and Central started their first groups of limited in person. They each have about 50 students in and are continuing to build and we'll continue to build upon those groups over the next few weeks. So I'm going to there's a little bit of data we'll show today of the high school, of some of the pathways that the high school is looking at. We're excited, obviously, as the metrics continue to trend downward, we will be able to continue to phase in. Our goal is where we can, and we're hoping later this spring that we can move towards that hybrid learning, beginning with obviously our K-5, where we can expand that where we can. Again, focusing that we want our students in every day at the K-5 level. So again, that amount of expansion, again, there's going to be a limit, but that's our goal to be able to do. And then if we have the ability to move forward with our 6-8 and then our 9-12. So just again, excited that we're to this point. Metrics have continued to go down, and we're excited for those pieces. So just some next steps for us. Next slide for me, please, is we continue to have weekly meetings. We're probably going to shift those to every other week with our Polk County partners. And again, that includes conversations with the public health department, the superintendents of Dallas, Perrydale, and Fall City, and obviously our leadership here in the school district. It's been just great collaborative conversations of both learning from each other and seeing what everybody's doing, and also borrowing and stealing ideas from each other, which has been just great for Polk County in general. We're continuing through the vaccination process. So again, we're in that, what I'm going to say is that second phase. So the second dosage of vaccines have started. We are transitioning back to on-site operations, and staff are coming back into the buildings. As I already shared, that's a time frame of what our phase 2 is going to look like. And then again, we're going to continue to expand. We're looking at doing another community committee either March 10th or the 17th. So, once we've been in with our K-5 specifically, and again, with some of the limited in person at the secondary level, getting some feedback and looking at where we can continue to improve. And then obviously we're going to continue to monitor those cases and test positivity rates. So those really are some of our next step. So the next 3 slides, we're just showing you a snapshot of what it looks like. So these are just a couple different pictures of what it looks like within our buildings. So these are just some quick pictures. Oop, can you go back one? Quick pictures of our elementary, the 3 schools, and a couple of our staff. Again, one of the things you'll see, a staff member may get close, for a little bit and then step back, because again, as we've talked about, we want to keep that 6 feet distance, but we know at sometimes they're going to have to get closer, and we have safety protocols, et cetera. You can see, I always love to show in the middle of that table in the top picture, there is hand sanitizer. There is enough hand sanitizer around the district. We are going to make sure things are safe. So again, just giving you a snapshot of what that looks like. Next one again is Talmadge. You can see again a couple of the different areas where the students are in. One is the cafeteria. They have a couple spots in the gym, and then you can see, you know, the high school, or excuse me, the middle school and high school in their entrance, because they are older, they actually have specific questions that they have to answer. And so we grab that information in case we do have any type of outbreak that we can contact trace pretty quickly and move forward with that. And then last is just a quick picture of our high school and some of the work that they've started in their limited in person. Next slide for me, please. So the other piece I wanted to share with you is a little bit about just our participation, which again is I'm not going to call it attendance, because attendance for us is different ways this year of looking at how students are participating. So this is a breakdown by the last 4 months of what our student participation looks like. And that can be either that they're participating with their video classes, they're having consistent communication between the student and teacher, and works being turned in, that there are phone calls happening and taking place, that students are submitting their coursework. So again, participation and how we've had to define it looks a little bit different than what normal attendance is, and how we report to the state. So I just wanted to give you a snapshot of really what the last 4 months at each of the buildings looks like from a participation. And again, just because a student may not jump on and be online, but if they're turning in homework or they're turning in their assignments, that counts as participation. So we're trying to find a balancing act of meeting students where they're at so that they can be successful. The next one, though, I wanted to spend some time, because we actually have been, the elementaries do have students that they're meeting with every day. So Monday, it's a short period of time. And then Tuesday through Friday, they're meeting virtually with their students. And this is actually a breakdown of the total percentages of students that are there every day. What I want to share is, and again, I'm going to go back 2 years of data, but I think it's really important to understand why this picture right here is successful from a virtual standpoint. So the last year, really for us to have what's called regular attenders. So those students that are attending our schools consistently. For 2018-19, Ash Creek was 83%. So if you look, again, they're a little bit below, but that's for considering we are in a completely different environment. They are very similar to what their 2018-19 regular attenders were. For Independence, their regular attendance in the state report card overall was 69%. We're above that. Again, so I give great credit as an example to IES and what they're continuing to do. Again, we got work to do in attendance. I'm not saying that, but just to give a snapshot of that. And then for Monmouth, again, they're pretty consistent with what they have done. They're slightly down, but their overall regular attendance was 85%. So again, this is a snapshot of data that we're continuing, but I felt it was important when you really look at from a virtual setting what both our families and our staff and even the students are doing to stay engaged. And I know that we see a little bit of drop from month to month. So that's why, again, I'm so excited that our metrics are down far enough that we can start to move back into in-person. But again, I think that just different students, I want to be clear about that. You guys, I talk all the time about cohort data versus just general data. I'm giving you a general data. These are not the same. Some of them may be the same students, but they're not the same. But again, you get that trend of when we were full-time in, our data looks very similar. And again, that's credit to everybody, families, our students, and our teaching staff and our support staff of what they're doing to support that. The next one is just a breakdown of really the high school class passing rates for first semester. So again, on the left side is our 9th through 12th grade. And then moving from left to right, just the percentages of overall students passing all classes, students not passing one class, number of students not passing two, and then obviously 3. one of the things that I will tell you as the administration with their staff and their leadership teams continues to look at this data, they are looking specifically at failure rates as one of those items to look at what's the next group of students that we want to bring in from a limited in person. And so again, just in conversations with Principal Servignat the other day as we're having, they're looking at including for those next groups of students that may have been failing math and English language arts, because both of those are key graduation requirements and those are classes over each year. So again, just showing this to you because again, that's some of the decision making as we look at what's the next group of students in. She has talked about ninth graders. Obviously, you can see that there in that far right. So again, continuing to look at what's the next group of students that we need to focus on. And then the next one, there's been some questions that we've received from the community about just a comparison of what are the grade distributions from last fall, which has been the first semester of 1920 when we were actually in person, compared to our semester that just ended now for 2021. So this slide shows a little bit of that comparison. I am very thankful to Principal Servignat for sharing this data with us so I could share it with you tonight. Again, one of the things that you'll see here, which is different from last year to this year that we've implemented, is really that approach of having that no pass as an option. That does help with a GPA, especially if you're talking about transcripts. It's also referenced in section 5 of the Ready School Safe Learners when it talks about instructional considerations. There is great focus on allowing opportunities for students to redo it, to make it up, to try it again, to show progress, to attempt to complete the work without penalty so they can retain that highest earned grade as well as the credit. There's also guidance that talks about, that we can have varied evidence of that learning. And you all hear me talk about, we have standards in each of the grade levels, and there are different ways for students to show teachers how they've met that standard. So when we talk about a continuum, again, we want to be able to move it. Standards are hard in high school because high school has grades, right? That, as an educator, we would love to get rid of grades, but that's not going to happen because again, we want that just continued growth of those standards. But again, we do have to have grades because that is tied to that post-secondary approach that we're wanting to be able to do. The other thing that this is tied to, there's also a guidance called addressing grades and credit options. And that's a separate guidance within the Ready School Safe Learners in the appendix. And it is specifically clear that says, especially with our high school students, that allow for that late work, allow for them to get it in, allow them to retake it, allow them to get the revisions. That's why the pass, no pass is there. We need to give them pathways because we do want them to graduate. That is the goal. And so again, there's also a section in there that says develop and apply scoring scales that eliminate zeros. And again, going to that pass, no pass approach. And then how do we use incomplete to reflect insufficient or incomplete evidence for students so they don't get the F, and then we can continue to work with them in a plan to get them to pass that class. A pass helps their overall GPA, an F really can hurt that. So I give great credit to both Principal Servignat, her administrative team, as well as their leadership team in working through some of the grades that you can see. And again, look at just even the enrollment difference. I mean, our enrollment has truly grown. Yeah. So again, just wanted to share that with you because again, I know that some of the questions have been brought up about that. The next slide is just an update of our metrics. The positive news is we are continuing to move down. It was just a slight move into the yellow, but again, we're continuing to progressively move, or our case rates are continuing to drop, as well as our test positivity is a little bit flat from the last two look backs, but we are moving definitely in the right direction. And then our final slide, just a couple things. So this is just a snapshot. It's a picture of data that our Get Fit program wanted to get some data because there was a grant that they were interested in. And just as a reminder, our Get Fit program is specifically for our staff that really promotes our staff to stay healthy and stay connected. So again, just a snapshot. Part of the reason I put this snapshot up there, we wanted to share that the Get Fit program just received an OEA Choice Trust grant to continue our approaches of staying healthy and connected during these times. So we're really excited for them to get that grant. This grant will support a book and journaling club for staff, again, tied to the connectedness, as well as 2 classes that are focused, and a lot of this is done virtually. I'll be honest, I have taken a couple of yoga classes. It's actually nice to be able to have that as an employee or as an employee of the school district. So they'll have 2 classes focused on mobility and strength, which again is focused on our health. This grant will also help pay for incentives for our employees to stay healthy and connected. And then finally, the last piece, and you can leave it on this slide, Emily. We wanted to just share that, and I know I shared this in the board report, but we actually want to make it public, that in partnership with our Student-Based Health Center, our Polk County Family and Community Outreach Department Division, our Polk County Behavioral Health Division, and then obviously Central School District, a grant was submitted by our county to increase outreach and engagement for our Latinx community specific to health and wellness. We learned this past week that the grant was approved, and the grantors actually gave us more money than we requested. That never happens. I just want to be clear about that. They were so impressed with what we are wanting to do within our wellness campaign that they gave us additional money. So again, it's going to be focused specifically on a wellness campaign in Spanish, reflecting the voices of our Latinx students, our families, and our community members. Really, the goal of this grant is to eliminate the disparities specifically in health and wellness. And we have our first focus group meeting. It's a small group of leaders, of students, of families, of community leaders tomorrow afternoon to start this process. So I will share more information with you, but we are really excited to get this as we continue to support our community. And again, just being a good partner and wanting to move forward with that. So that is it for me. Questions?
So, Jim, if we jump back to the getting kids into the schools, if things stay on track through March, what's a rough estimate? How many students will we have in the buildings at the end of March?
I'll have better numbers for that. It really, we're looking at, we were about at and again, because of these parts are still moving once you get kids in, we were at about a little under, it looked like 80% of our students would be in person. Again, parents have the ability to do virtual still. So, again, I'll have better numbers as we get through these I'll get a first look of what K1 looks like by the end of this week. Again, then adding 2, 3. But I'm assuming we'll have about, 75 to 80% of our students coming into the buildings for the rest of the year. And again, we're going to continue to have conversations. As I said, in conversations and with the principals, especially, I'm going to talk K5 specifically right now. The consistency of having students in every day, that they're in every day, at least 4 days a week, was the priority. And so that's, there may be a little bit of room for us to expand a little bit more time, but I can tell you already as an example, there is one school that half of the teachers, one of the half of the teachers cohort has been in already in the targeted limited in person. And I got a picture on Thursday of last week. That teacher had already pulled all those students into her room. So our teachers are excited to get them back in. So again, Dawn, I'll have better numbers and I will put those in our Friday reports just with a general, and we've had a little bit of movement here and there, but that's again, based off of some of the information that the principals have shared with me. That's probably what we're looking at, and then doing it by 2 grade levels. The high school and the middle school, again, we want numbers to continue to go down. I think the continuing to bring in the limited in person is how we'll slowly continue to build into that. I think the high school is a little bit of a different approach. because of both of them are different approaches. So they're continuing to look at what does that hybrid model look like of bringing students in on a probably more of, I think the middle school is trying to do a daily, but the high school, because of just what needs to be accomplished for graduation, may be an every other day type of approach. So we'll continue to look as the metrics go down and what that timeline would look like.
Is that because we're trying to keep the amount of time that they're in face-to-face with mask on contact down, or is that a resource limitation?
Well, it's space.
Okay.
It's space. It truly is a space issue. So when we're talking about the elementaries, again, with what they've built, we'd, to some degree, we would have to take over half of Perry's building if we wanted to go longer times in the elementary, as an example, because of the sizing of the cohorts. And again, I'm not saying that's what we're going to do. I want to be clear about that, but to give people an understanding of, to expand time, we have a little bit to do that. But again, if we're wanting more, we would have to look at, again, the annex doesn't give us enough space, right? So again, we've looked at a couple different options, but for us to do that. So again, that's right now, why we went with at least 2 hours. If we can expand that a little bit more, we'll look into that, but at least consistently getting students in every day.
But just to make sure I understand, so you're saying that by the end of March, if all goes well, we should have 75 to 80% of our students in
K5. In K5.
Oh, that's not K through 12. That was going to be.
Yeah, K5.
Okay.
K5. K5 is the first focus.
Right.
And then as metrics continue to be, and I really want metrics low as we start bringing in 6 through 12. Those students have higher rates of COVID. Again, because I look at all, as I've shared with you all, I look at different numbers. I do look at what students are getting it. The 0 to 9 is very low. The 10 to 19 is double that. So again, I want to be clear, we have great safety protocols. I do not have any concerns. I mean, we may have flares here and there, but if we are following the guidance where, again, 6 feet apart, hand sanitizing, keeping our masks on, should we have a student get COVID, we should be in good spaces where we do not have to shut full cohorts down. The only reason we would shut cohorts down is if 1, 2, 3, 4, at some point, the public health is going to say to us, hey, Jen, too many, you need to bring it down for a period of time. We hope that that doesn't happen, but that will be part of our process if we get to that point. So K5, end of Friday as we go into spring break, potentially 75 to 80% of our K5 students will be in the building. And again, that's by choice. The rest would be virtual.
And then what would you estimate for middle and high school?
Depends on the metrics. If metrics keep going down, I think in conversations with, in continued conversations with Donna and or Principal Servignan and Principal LaBounty, we're wanting to continue to expand those limited in person and just continue to build that in. And then if we do have a point where, cases are quite low and we, again, I think we're also looking at things like if it's May or it's the middle of May, we only have a month left of school. Why make that shift? Again, continuing to expanded limited in person. They've talked about, can they get every student in a couple times a day, or a couple times a week? That's some of the continued conversation, but they're also building a hybrid because if we were to truly plummet in our numbers, and that happens, for example, after spring break, that we're sitting at 75, 100 per 100,000, then yeah, we probably will be shifting in that direction. That's middle of May. I think I'm going to be coming to you all with a different conversation because that's only a month left of school. So again,
Best case, let's say things stay on the track that they're on right now. Maybe we have 10, 20% of our middle school, high school kids back, 5, 10%.
no, I think they're going to they're trying to see how many kids they can get in, even in the limited in person. So
Right.
they're being, and I mean this, they're being smart but aspirational. And that's what I appreciate about them. So I don't know that I can give you a percentage of that because again,
Just trying to get a ballpark.
Right. That's a tough one for me because again, I think that those are the secondary is still one of those that we're trying to continue. I mean, they both have showed me again, as I shared, because of some of that failure rate, you know, one of the conversations is we've got to look at bringing students that have failed math in. Well, you saw how many ninth graders and, you know, that had three or more failing classes. Math is probably a part of that conversation. So that could be a good chunk of students that are coming in limited in person and getting some of that instruction. So I'll have better numbers as we go through this. That's the only number I don't want to guess at, just because, you know, we want to keep building and positive. And I'm just going to remind everybody, if numbers go up, if numbers start to go back up again, the difference between the new guidance and the previous guidance is that whatever students are in our buildings, we can keep in our buildings. So let's say in 2 weeks, we jump back up to 250 cases per 100,000. We will have all of our K-5 in, so they would be able to stay in. Whatever limited in person that both the middle school and the high school have expanded to, they would be able to keep that in. We wouldn't have to shut everything back down. Now we would pause and wait for it to go back down, but anybody that would be in, we don't have to shut it down like that was the previous guidance.
So the pause you're talking about is we would pause adding more?
Correct.
But not pause the students that are already in there.
Correct.
Okay.
I have a question.
Hi.
What we're seeing in the participation data, the K through 5s, which was good and really interesting comparison to what it was historically. But then you see this drop off at the high school level, which I think for me and having a lens through my son into the high school, I've been worried about just what the kids. There are so many more distractions, and without the social interaction, it's not surprising to see that data. But is that, in talking to other superintendents, is that the pattern that we're seeing across the board in the state of Oregon? And almost every high school is trying to figure out how to intervene now with those kids that have just kind of disengaged.
Yeah, that's been a huge part of our continued conversations of, what's the best approach, who's the best connectors, right? Because again, certain students certain teachers, certain IAs, certain people within the building can connect with kids. I think that's what we're continuing to try and look at. I think as, staff is coming back on site, I think that as we just continue to move in that direction with limited in person, how do we potentially start having those conversations of just different groups and, the leadership within the buildings and adding that in. So I think that in lots of conversations in the past 6 months, high school has been by far, and I'm going to say for medium to large school districts, I think smaller school districts can move easier is how I'll phrase it. I mean, we're a 5A high school. We're 1,000 students. We can't just bring in 1,000 students into that building. So the high school is being really thoughtful in what does the next month look like in bringing in these limited in-person groups for the students that we really know are struggling either academically or struggling social emotionally. And I know that's been a big part of it and will continue to be a big part of both of their conversations.
Another question, what is happening with the extracurricular stuff at the middle school or at Talmadge?
So that has been a topic of conversation. Right now, it is still a pause. I think that some of the, at least in conversations with Mr. LaBounty, there are other ways because, especially as the weather gets better, there may be other spaces that we can bring students into. So, we have outside spaces that we might be able to do that. So I think we're trying to figure out what's the best possible way. What would that look like? What would those activities be? He's got a couple thoughts. So that has been a conversation. I wouldn't say it's completely thought out, just because the focus has been more on how do we get the students in to get some academic support.
Sure, and you've got the high school going now, so we can use that to learn
Absolutely.
from and then start to apply some of
Right,
that at the
and-
middle school.
Again, I hope that we're not in this next year. I get concerned that we may still be, but just what you said, Steve, I think what we learn, and if we can learn enough and then continue to expand that, where we might be able to do some things into the summer and into the fall, if we are still in this environment, to support maybe some after-school activities. I know that one of the things that we're working on and continuing to try and build is our 21st century extended learning. And so I know that there is a group that both tutors and coordinators that are really working hard with what do students want to really focus on, so we can, have those after school activities and get them engaged. So I think that could be another avenue that we're looking at, of expanding that.
Yeah, it seems like, I mean, what's striking me about that data is just how big of a challenge that's going to be at the high school, not just for the seniors, but that whole freshman. And it's probably, if you look down into the 8th grade as well, it's similar. And so we've got our work cut out to focus and create whatever we can do intervention wise to get those
Yeah,
kids
and
back
and
on
I would
track.
say we are part of, and I'm going to continue to share this, and it will be part of our budget conversation, not only this year, in the future. We must have a robust summer programming. We need to have robust summer programming for probably the next 3 to 5 years. And that, again, I jokingly say to Cease, I mean, we start an internal budget conversation this Friday. And that's, we talk about what are some of the things that get protected, that we are not going to touch. And that is one of the key pieces that we've talked about, is how do we make sure that we either have funding or we go after funding. And we know that there may be more funding coming, potentially from the state, potentially from the federal government. I think there's still some moving parts of that as we move forward. We have ESSER money that some of that can be used for, although, as C says, we're making a shift and doing some big things from a Wi-Fi perspective to upgrade our buildings. So, again, that's going to be another huge part of how do we continue to build, really robust 4 or 5 week summer programming for our students on site.
Mhm.
So I have
Can I ask a question?
go ahead, Darcy.
Go ahead, Darcy. Yeah.
Okay. Real quickly, I have 2 questions. Can you tell me, or can you tell us, what are the student numbers of how many are actually in the middle school and how many are in the high school? Like
Yep.
bodies in students.
Yep, there were, with the first groups of cohorts, Perry has 59 in his first group, and then Donna had 49. But their goal is to continue to build on that. Just to give you an example, the elementaries with their targeted were really sitting at between 20 and 30. So again, middle school, high school, a little bit bigger with their first targeted group. But again, you're looking at just that first group and beginning to build upon that.
Okay. And then my next question is how is special education moving into all of this? Because it sounds like there's a big, heavy push on, obviously, seniors because of graduation and people who are really struggling or don't have internet. But what's happening to the SPED students that really need their services?
Well, so there are a couple different things. So they do have, if they have specially designed instruction, that is happening during the day or different parts of the day based off of what they put in place. As we look at what are those areas that we are bringing students in, for example, I'm going to use a high school. If they are the students that may be a 9th grader who is experiencing disability and has failed math, they potentially are going to be in that cohort of what students that may come into as that next group. The guidance is very clear that you cannot just bring in special ed students, or you cannot just bring in your emerging bilinguals, that you need to be very thoughtful in the groups that you are focusing on. As you look at what, again, they're very clear, don't base it off of program, base it off of what your key needs are. And then again, they've talked about internet, students not accessing. We've started to look at just, what are those failure rates that are tied where we're seeing that. So Darcy, that's really been as we've done that approach, our focus. Again, as we bring in, obviously the grade levels, that they are part of that. All of our students, whether they're emerging bilingual or a student that may be experiencing a disability, they would, if their parents want them to come back in. And we, again, obviously we are working through accommodations to make sure that everyone feels safe, because that's also a part of this. It's a very different learning environment. I think what people think of what our classrooms have been in the past, they're not. They're very, students are at their desk. It is a little bit more of a controlled environment than we had even before. So, but they are part of that continued conversation of, as we bring in our grade levels, they're a part of that continued conversation. And then again, from 6 through 12, it's really looking at what are the key pieces that we are looking at of the needs of students. Darcy, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Sorry, just because a child needs specialized instruction or a one-on-one aid doesn't necessarily mean he's going to get back into the building any sooner than a student who doesn't need it. Is that correct?
Correct. We are looking at, well, for grade level. So again, as we look at the students coming in at our K-5, again, we have reached out to all of our families to, if they wanted to come in or not. So again, all of our students are part of those conversations. There could be potential step-up plans, right? Because it is a very different environment, and we want to make sure that students are successful. But then again, when I talk about the secondary level, it is more specific on, we cannot do it specific to programming. It is what are the needs that our students are needing. So again, math student, if that's what we're going to look at, again, that's going to be a continued part of our conversation as we look at bringing students back into the building.
If parents are struggling do they go back to their principal?
I think they would start. Yeah, I think again, as I think I've shared before, and as if Director Howman were here, she would say, please start with your case managers. If you can connect with your case managers and/or your teacher, that's we always want to do things at the lowest level. So that would be where I would say that's your first starting point. If you're having struggles there, then obviously you would go next to your building administration. And then if there are still struggles there, then to our district office.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I might be looking a little too forward or in advance, but I was gonna ask about, so metrics going up, we still keep our numbers where they're at that moment.
Correct.
As stated before.
That are in the buildings, that are in the buildings,
yes,
correct.
Yes, that are in the buildings. So summer comes and do we start at that same level, assuming that we're still in a limited in-person?
So a couple things. The state, the Oregon Department of Education has said to us, they will quarterly look at the guidance.
Okay.
At that quarterly look, they're looking at what's the CDC saying. They're having conversations with, educational leaders in different states as well. Again, that's part of their process. So I still think there are going to be shifts in the guidance based off of how and what the virus continues to do. I think that we are, in the short time that we have had students in, what we are seeing with our activities now that we're back up and going, we are seeing success. So again, but again, I want to be very clear. It's about the tools in the toolbox, right?
Right.
They're wearing the mask, the social distancing, they're washing their hands, we're not all being social, right? We're not having fans, which is going to be really hard for our community. And I understand that because I said to our director of safety and security today, I'd really like to go to the soccer game tomorrow night. I really would like to, but I can't. And I know that because I want those students and those coaches to have that opportunity to be competitive.
Right.
So I believe that if based off if the guidance stays and we would continue to go down and there's no shift in the spacing, so we still have to be 6 feet apart, we could be in school full time if our metrics were down. However, we're going to run into spacing issues.
Right.
Because
Is that
what we normally do in a classroom, which is, I'm just going to use an elementary classroom is 20 to 25, and we've had some bigger classes.
right?
We can do half of that right now because of what the guidance says. So as an example, should the guidance, again, we're hearing that potentially as if the virus continues to move down, would they narrow that
Yeah,
spacing?
to the 3 feet. idea.
Possibly 3 feet. That could give us a different scenario for, but again, what I'll tell you, everything that we're doing now is helping us learn to what might we be able to do in the fall more consistently and more time.
Okay.
Well, if history tells us anything, we'll probably get that revised guidance last week in August.
Right.
That would,
I hope
have a
not.
whole week to turn it around.
A week to prepare.
I hope not. The only last thing I have is we have 2 policy updates and they're just real quickly. One is they're both tied to our talented and gifted students. And really both of them are adding clarity to the appeal procedure. And again, it's related to OER. And then the other one talks about the appeal process for complaint procedures. So again, those are minor changes and you'll see that first reading within the board report. Teachers are working with kids to move them forward, and they're also working with kids to catch them up that may be behind in grade level. So we are doing our best to make those happen.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent. So for the board report tonight, I don't have much. You can see the dates for our upcoming meetings. We don't have anything on the calendar now for a PLC. The topic of the facilities assessment that.
Potentially we
potentially.
may need to, yes.
Yeah. And then we've got the budget committee meeting starting later in April. We'll be talking about the budget committee makeup here in our business agenda. The one thing that I did want to share is if you go out to the Oregon Health Authority website and you scroll down, if you go to their COVID-19 page and you scroll down, they have done a pretty good job of actually putting out a map of the state of Oregon, color coding the status of all school districts. So you can see which ones are just fully distance learning, which ones are in LIPI, which ones are in hybrid. And then they also have data that you can scan, the county level data, the guidelines and where we fall. This is one of the things that I had asked Jim Green if OSBA or if anybody had been talking about putting this together. I think it's really interesting.
Mhm.
I would encourage board members to go take a look at that when you have a chance, and community members as well. I think it's very
Yeah, and
interesting.
I'll add that just so you have it to the Friday report too.
ODE or OHA?
OHA.
It's on OHA, which is interesting. It's not
Yeah.
on the ODE, but I think it was a collaborative effort and they just
Yeah,
decided to put
sure.
it down there on all the different OHA data. So it's pretty interesting though. It's actually pretty well done. So that's it for me. That brings us to our consent agenda. So we have the minutes, the personnel recommendations, of which we now have the hard copy, and then our policy from second reading, the board elections policy. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move. I'll second it.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Don. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, please raise your right hand. The motion passes unanimously. And that brings us to our business agenda. So I will turn it back over to the superintendent.
So obviously we had 2 lost days of instruction with our lovely ice storm. So in the packet is an updated calendar. It shifts. We do build in every year 2 to 3 dates. I built in 3 this year, or we built in 3 this year. So we, because of those 2, we are shifting. So school would end on the, let me just, because I have it right here. School would end on the 17th, and then we would have a work day, and then, or excuse me, professional learning day, grade day, and then they would have their 2 work days the following week. So we are close on instructional hours. We always are at the middle school and high school, and again, elementary, we do have a little bit, but again, we want to make sure that we meet those hours. So we are shifting and adding those 2 days back. We still have the 18th, if you look at that, although knock on wood, because this week is going to be gorgeous here. We do have 1 more day should we have any type of issue within our area to work with. So we would end school on the 17th. And we've shared the calendar with both union organizations as well as part of our collaborative, continued collaborative approaches.
So do we need to approve this?
You do.
I move we approve the calendar as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, Vidal. Quick question for me. Is there leniency this year in the instruction hours because of the COVID
Yeah.
pandemic?
In the fact that we have been able to do more conferences with families and a little bit more professional learning time. So that's where we've had a little bit of flexibility with, we can add some of those hours into that time. So we've been able to do that. I think that's, one of the things that I think has been a success has been conferences with families and having a little bit more time. So I know that that's going to be one of the things that we're going to, as we look at, and I think we normally start calendaring for next year now. We'll probably push it off a little bit just to see where and what, and if the guidance would shift anymore. So again, I'm going to do my best to hopefully have something May-ish is how I'll say it, possibly June. I don't know that we're going to have enough information to be able to have a solid, confident that this is what next year is going to look like. So I know that's going to be really hard for families. Again, because we're still in this pandemic, because again, just as an example, the travel advisory has changed a little bit. If you have the vaccine and you're through the inoculation period, there's a little bit more flexibility from a state to state perspective. So there are still some moving parts that we're going to continue to work through in what that looks like as an example. So, but that's the flexibility. That was a temporary rule this year. To allow us to be able to do that. I think that's going to be part of the continued conversation with the Oregon Department of Education. If we are in this similar environment, do they allow that as we move forward?
What I was trying to think through is, sometimes I think adding these days at the end of the school year just are not all that effective because kids are distracted. I mean, it's summer. On the other hand,
we're going to move pretty quickly into summer school. That's where.
On the other hand, we need every hour that we can get with the kids.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to process it, and maybe it's almost like a continuum this year to move right into some type of summer school.
Yeah,
so,
and we'll be coming back with some what that might look like as we start the summer school conversations.
Okay, thank you. That helped me think through it. Any other questions? Okay, all in favor of passing the motion to amend the student or the calendar, please raise your right hand. Did we lose Darcy?
I was going to say we lost Darcy.
Well, we still have quorum.
There she is.
Oh, there she is. Hi, Darcy. Okay. That passes unanimously.
Was she voting or waving?
She was
We'll
voting.
consider that a vote. Okay, that brings us to our budget committee applicants.
And I'm going to turn that over to Cease, actually.
Thank Thank you. We had put out the call for vacancies in the Budget Committee. And as you can see from the packet, we have several actually. We only have two returning Budget Committee members who are still in the period that their term is active. But we have had 3 applications. 2 of those, one for Zone 2, which is open at this time, and one for Zone 7, a reapplication from Rachel Dabercow for her Zone 7 seat. Zone 2, we've had Mary Schellenbarger for years. She was out of zone in that appointment. But she has had to resign that seat. So we have Becky J, who has applied for that seat. And then we had an application from John Boren, actually the parent you heard from earlier this evening. The zone that he lives in is represented. So we are recommending appointment to one of the vacant seats. And that will be a 1-year appointment. The zone he lives in will be up next year, and then he would have the opportunity to apply in zone. So at least filling 3 of those vacancies this evening, we would recommend that you appoint the folks who have applied, and their letters are in your packet.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion. So it looks like we've got a couple of suggested motions there.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Jerry.
I move to appoint Becky J to Zone 2 and reappoint Rachel Davercow to Zone 7 for a 3-year term to end 6/30/2023, and John Bourne as an out-of-zone appointment to Zone 4 for a term to expire 6/30/2021.
Thank you, Jerry. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Vidal. I guess those are just duplicates here in the
Yeah.
addenda package. That's just one
Yeah.
motion.
One for the first and one for the second. That was a joke.
It's been a long day. All in favor of passing the motion for these Budget Committee appointments, please raise your right hand. Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Quick question for Cease. Do we
Yes.
just proceed with 2 vacant positions on the board, on the Budget Committee?
Yes, you know, we've had more than that in recent years. The rules regarding quorums and things are based on how many of the seats are filled. So at this point, we will soldier forth with the folks who have gamely stepped up and move forward. Yeah. So we'll be getting those Budget Committee dates out to you soon.
I have a question too, Cease. So those positions that are left vacant, are they able to be filled by people in those zones still to this day, or?
Absolutely. If people stepped forward either in that zone, or again, if somebody's zone is already represented, but somebody would like to apply for the vacancy, we can accept those at your next meeting. It would be a little dicey. They'd come on board and immediately have duties basically to attend the first meeting. And I do orientations with brand new board members. I'm going to go ahead and meet with the 2 folks you've just appointed. And but absolutely, if somebody wants to step in at the last minute, they would just need to submit a letter of interest. Has to have their name and their contact information and their address so we can verify that it is within one of those zones, or that they are applying for an out-of-zone appointment. In April.
And they submit that to the school, to you, or to the school district, or?
Yeah, actually, if they either just send that into the district office, or they can also email it to info@central.k12.or. and it will get to me to forward on to you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, if you know of anybody, it's better to,
So there's 3 vacancies or is it 2?
This will be 2.
2?
Two.
That's what I thought. We appointed 3 and there's only 2.
Yep.
Okay.
2 left. Okay, let's see. That brings us to the meeting wrap up. Comments from individual board members. Would anybody like to share tonight? Okay, items for action at future meetings. We talk about having Polk County come in. Your
Polk County Health or
Polk County Health, yeah.
I can talk with them. I know that they were not able to join us. Because of the vaccine and everything going on, they have been quite busy to be able to pull, but I can reach out to them if you would like them at.
And this wasn't so much on the COVID data, but more on the health. It kind of ties into the grant that you were talking about.
Oh,
So
yeah,
maybe it could be a
I'm more than
combined-
willing to bring that. Yes, we could bring in to be very honest, we have had really good conversations among the health center, behavioral health division of Polk County and our community and family outreach. So yeah, if we could absolutely bring in a group that could talk about even what we are doing holistically in the county in some of those pieces. I'm sure that they would be open to that, to be able to just share what we are continuing to, what we have built and what we're continuing to build.
I think you and I had talked about it in the context of, are we really paying attention to this,
Yep.
the stress that this is putting on the
Mhm,
kids? And in addition to getting kids back into the buildings, is there anything that we can do
Yep.
resource-wise to help them, help families, just,
Yeah,
in
I
order
will
to-
definitely, we can add that to get this group on the next meeting.
We had Britta Santoni, our whole child coordinator, and the mental health folks scheduled for a meeting and had that snowed out or something.
Yeah, we'll get that back on.
Yeah, that's perfect. Any other topics that the board members would like to see in the future meeting? Okay, that wraps up the meeting. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We are adjourned.